Okay, so we're here with Dawn Childress, who is a school principal here in Fort Smith for the Fort Smith Public School System. So thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you
and
so
being
much.
with us.
It's an honor to be here. I'm excited to share about what brought me to Fort Smith and the great things about Fort Smith, because I love where I live, and I love the people that I work with, and I love our community.
Yeah, so why don't we start from the very beginning and talk about like where you're from, how you got here, what brought you here, why Fort Smith?
Okay, it's been a little bit of a journey. So I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and when my kids were little, my husband was working out of Muskogee a lot, and so we moved to Vian, Oklahoma, because there were 33 boat ramps within, 133 boat ramps within a 30-mile radius. Oh, wow. And my husband was like, that's where we need to be.
Yeah,
and
10 Killer and
yes,
great spot.
So Kerr Lake, 10 Killer. And so we moved to Vian, Oklahoma, and we raised our kids there. When we moved there, there was not even a Walmart Supercenter anywhere near. And so coming from Tulsa, I needed these things. And so we started coming to Fort Smith then. If we wanted to take our kids out to dinner, if we wanted to go do something fun, we always came to Fort Smith.
So, how far is that from Fort Smith?
From Vian, it's about 45 minutes, probably.
You can tell I'm not from here originally.
Yeah, it's right off of I-40.
Okay,
on your way to Tulsa.
Yes. Yeah. So, we kind of got our feet wet in Fort Smith that way. When my son graduated from high school, I started working on my ed specialist degree towards getting my doctorate. And when I did that, I looked at OU, I looked at OSU, and I settled on the University of Arkansas being the best option for me. They had a kind of a hybrid online class that I could meet from my living room. But through that process, one of my professors was a longtime superintendent in Fort Smith. And so I started learning just a little bit about Fort Smith Public Schools in that process. And then through assignments, I was comparing small rural districts to large urban districts. And in the process, I just kind of fell in love with Fort Smith Public Schools, and I wanted to grow in my career, and I thought, I'm just going to go for it. So I applied for Fort Smith and was hired as I was an assistant principal already where I was at. Was hired as an assistant principal here in Fort Smith, and so that's what I did. My first year, I worked at Woods and Barling, and then this is my 7th year at Orr Elementary.
Nice.
So I drove back and forth for 2.5 years from Vian, So my husband was working an hour the opposite direction, and so when he quit doing what he was doing that direction, he decided to open a home inspecting company. And so we moved to Fort Smith, and he started his home inspecting company, and here we are.
Oh, that's great. So you're from Tulsa. I have 2 questions. One, where at? I'm from Tulsa as well.
Oh, are you?
Okay,
yeah.
So where at in Tulsa?
I went to Union High School.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so started at Union when I was in 4th grade. I actually started life in Cushing, Oklahoma.
Oh, so, I do know Cushing too.
Do you?
We have family from there, believe it or not. Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, so growing up in Tulsa, when we moved to Vian, there wasn't even pizza delivery.
Yeah.
So, what do you do when there's snow outside? And so anyway, so it was a huge culture change, and Fort Smith offered everything that we really needed to make us feel comfortable with moving this direction.
So what sets Fort Smith Public Schools apart, do you think, from other school districts?
This is my favorite thing to talk about. So,
yeah, you said you fell in love with the school district.
I did. And when I came to Fort Smith, we had just started the millage project. And so I was asked to be a table facilitator for the Citizens Committee. And so when I was on that Citizens Committee table facilitating, I could hear all of the discussions from our city leaders, from different people in the community, got to learn what was important to the people here, their passion for kids and their passion for our community, and passion for being helpful and making sure that our kids had everything that they needed was really exciting. It was also a really exciting time to come in because we started making so many changes in our district for the better. So from that came the gyms at both of our high schools. The Peak Innovation Center was born from that process.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to have been in the middle of those conversations at the very beginning and to see how far Peak has come now. Just the collaboration in our community it's just not like anything I've experienced before.
Yeah.
We have partners in education, and I would say it's probably a model partner in education system. In my courses at the University of Arkansas while I was working on my doctorate, I worked with other people in my cohort that were from California and New York and New Jersey and Georgia and South Carolina, and I mean just all over the country. And they were all amazed about our Partners in Education program.
Yeah. What is that program? What does that entail?
So, our community businesses partner with our schools. And so we have a lot of industry here in Fort Smith. And our industry leaders are really great about wanting to pour back into our community. And one way that they do that is in our Partners in Education program with Fort Smith Public Schools. So we have a lot of, like at my school, for instance, REAM is one of our partners. So they have workers at REAM that come and are mentors to our students in our school. Awesome. They come and eat lunch with them once a week. They play with them on the playground. They just build some of those relationships and those bonds are really strong. So some of them have even been like, hey, can I follow them to middle school too? Because we also have Partners in Education and those mentoring programs at our middle schools. And they work with the Partners in Education work with Peak, with Northside, with Southside, just to help provide some extra support for helping our students be successful. They've got internships and all sorts of apprentice type programs that they do with our students that are older. And so it's a unique thing for so many industry partners to partner with the school system.
So two things. One, I had no idea about the mentorship program until a few weeks ago, and I signed up to be a mentor. I'm starting soon. I'm really excited about it.
That's awesome.
But I assume there are a lot of volunteer opportunities like that people don't know about.
And there are. And the great thing about it is when we have a Partners in Education conference at the beginning of the school year, so we can sit down with our partners in education and just brainstorm what are the things we can do? What are the new innovative things that we can do to support our kids? So that's just one piece of why I think Fort Smith Public Schools is amazing.
Yeah.
We've also got the Health Sciences Academy at Darby. So that is a program where our students can really start diving into the medical field. So they may or may not decide to become doctors later, but it gives them an opportunity to really see what they want to do before they, go out into the world. So,
and they have like nurses that come over and help teach, right? Is that correct?
They have nurses, doctors come over. They get to go on little trips inside the hospitals. When they're in 6th grade, they stay on Darby's campus, but when they're in 7th and 8th grade, they go to Baptist and to Mercy. And so that's another just great example of partnerships that we have with the community here in Fort Smith.
I love that because, in college, I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went through a lot of different majors.
Same.
Before I finally landed where I did. And this gives kids an opportunity to do that before going to college. They get a chance to go to middle school and try these health sciences stuff or do stuff at Peak before they go to college, and not know what they're going to do for a couple of years and spend some of mom and dad's money. So,
that's a good point. But it's also the community investing in its future, right? In the kids. Because we would love to have people go to college here at AIC. We would love to have them stay and practice medicine here in Fort Smith. And the community is investing in our schools and investing in our students here. And that's great. So
it's
you don't
a neat
see that
pipeline.
everywhere.
It's like a direct pipeline. And Dawn and I are in Leadership Fort Smith together. So we've got to see some of those things. And every week it's like a different piece of the puzzle of this giant picture of what is Fort Smith and what's going on here. But we've seen it start with, Fort Smith Public Schools, and then into workforce development, and then into higher education, how all those pieces are working together and how those things have not happened by accident. It's been very intentional every step of the way. So
it has. One really neat thing too, speaking of AIC, our fifth graders all go to AIC, and they, have a field trip there. And so that's really exciting. Our third and fourth graders at my school just got to have a physical therapy day where they played games with the physical therapy students and, talked about different science skills while they were there. So that was really neat. So we have some great partnerships. We also have all of our elementary schools. We have 18 elementary schools in Fort Smith right now. And all of the elementary schools have robotics teams. And that's another way for our partners to really engage with our students. So
I wish I had robotics.
I know.
Whenever I was a student. I see things like robotics and coding, and I'm like, where was this?
Esports is huge now.
It is.
Yeah, my kids want to do esports. So I was like, I have to look up what esports is, So.
What is esports, Google?
It's pretty neat when you go to a board meeting and then you're like, oh, well, we have the national esports champions right here at Southside, or
really?
That's
tell
news.
Me more.
That's
it's
cool.
Pretty neat. They have I can't remember all of the things, but it's just there are so many things like that students have great opportunities for in Fort Smith Public Schools, and so it's exciting. And we don't, as educators, we don't really know what we're preparing our students for, the jobs that our students will have. So we spend a lot of time really digging into what are those, academic and, workforce professional skills that our kids are going to need to make them adaptable to whatever comes our way, because technology is moving so fast.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's so true. There's jobs now that were not in existence 5, 8, 10, however many years ago. And it's going to be the same moving forward, right? These kids who are in elementary school, we have no idea what new jobs will be out there. So developing those soft skills, those professional skills, like the adaptability, the critical thinking, the flexibility, the ease of use with technology, different types of technologies. It's just so, so valuable for them to be gaining those skills now. That's great.
Yeah. And how long have you been in education now?
17 years.
So 17 years.
So I was a non-traditional student. I stayed home with my kids when they were little, and then I went back to school while they were in school. And so 17 years. But even in that time, a lot has changed. So
yeah, that's what I'm curious about, because whenever I was in school, it was pretty much you go to high school or you go to college afterwards, or you don't go to college afterwards. Those are your two options. But from what I've seen, there's a lot more to it than that. You could go get your associate's degree in something else. You could get training to be a plumber or whatever that would look like. So what things have changed over those 17 years?
Oh, that's a good question. So, well, COVID changed a lot, just with that flexibility and adaptability. Parents have done such a good job at becoming more adaptable and flexible as you have to change things. So, for instance, we had a little flood in our school this week. And so our parents were super understanding. Even though the kids couldn't come to school last minute on Monday, they were like, that's okay, we understand. And so I feel like just the understanding of parents when things don't go exactly the way that they think that they are going to go, I think that's been a really great thing to see. Now, since I've been in Fort Smith, I've seen a lot more change in education just because I feel like our administrators are really focused on being the best that we can be, being that best choice, the best option for families. And but I think it's just the adaptability, looking at ways that we can engage students with technology. Students are used to being like completely gratified instantaneously, just like adults are with phones and tablets and those kinds of things. So we just are constantly working on our practice to make sure that we can keep kids engaged.
How has technology really changed the game for education and teachers and stuff? I mean, I imagine it's tremendous change, but I would love to hear from you, like what has shifted, do you feel like? Yes. How is this different for students these days, you know?
Right. Well, first of all, we have to teach a little bit of patience with some things because we've got to build their stamina to do hard things. When technology is so quick, and they start, on tablets and phones when they're 1 or 2 years old. So we do have to build their stamina for doing tasks that take longer times without that gratification. But then we also build in a lot of celebration, incentive. We do have some great game-based platforms that teach reading concept skills, those kinds of things. So they still have a good time while they're learning, and they can earn badges or they can move up level.
Like Dojo.
Yes.
Dojo,
so, we've got a program called Lexia, and they can advance in reading up to different places. And so we do a lot of tracking, having students track their own data so that they can build some of that ownership and feel that those quicker rewards instead of, back in the day, we would just do end of the year celebrations, or we have to find ways to make sure that they know that they're making progress along the way. And so
it's stuff they're familiar with. This gamification stuff, they're familiar with. It's leveling up.
Their everyday life, right?
Anytime we can figure out how they can level up, they're excited about it.
Yeah.
Do you guys do map testing in Fort Smith Public Schools, or?
No, we don't have map testing. Okay. Actually, the whole state of Arkansas has switched to an Atlas program. It's through Cambium is the company that it's through, but it's all of our state testing is going through Atlas, and it has built-in progress monitoring. It has built-in systems so that it's kind of a one-stop shop for assessments. So that is very new. We're still trying to figure out all of the intricacies of that right now.
And it's online, right? It's all computerized. Is that starting in K?
It starts in kindergarten. Yeah. And so, we take our first Atlas screener in September of their kindergarten year. And so it's a good thing that they come with some computer tech skills when they get to us, although they're not really used to being on a Chromebook. They're used to being on a tablet or a phone. But it's amazing how quickly they learn to navigate things. But it does take a little bit of time to acclimate them to the testing platform when they're kindergartners.
Yeah. I remember, because I have an education background too. And I remember being a tech integrator back in, 2009 or something like that. And we were a little bit behind everybody else with technology. And we got all the teachers' laptops, and we started implementing iPads in the preschool, and then we got Chromebooks for elementary, and then high school, they started to do like bring your own device type of thing, or talk about doing a bring your own device. And it was just like, whoa, like everything changed very suddenly once all that technology got introduced into the day-to-day lives of students.
Yes.
You know, it changed writing instruction. It changed reading. And I remember a lot of teachers being so concerned about like, oh, well, this is a Windows laptop, you know, that our class has Windows laptops, but they're used to being on, Chromebooks. But the kids were just like, hand me that laptop. And, they don't, to them, they don't know. They don't care. They just adapt so quickly.
They do.
But it was the adults that were like, whoa, this is Windows. Like, how do I use this? It took us time. But for the kids, they're just so technologically adaptable. It's amazing. It's amazing to me.
Well, that makes me think. I didn't even think about this when you asked the question before, because when I think my second year as an assistant principal at my previous school district, our computers were like 13 years old, and
which is like 1,000 in computer years.
And no longer was our system going to be able to, we couldn't update security. We couldn't do anything else because we had expired the time in which you could update things.
Yeah.
And so we, having very, very little funds at the time, purchased all of our teachers' computers on like a government surplus.
Yeah.
They had $300 computers. And so we had to replace our whole district computers in that way. Well, we could not afford at the time to put Windows on all of our computers.
Don't tell me Linux.
No.
Okay.
Well, at this,
Linux.
like not Windows, Microsoft systems like Word and Excel. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
But we couldn't afford to do that. But Google Classroom or Google, the Google platform, Google Suite for Education had just come into play. So over the summer, I became a Google educator. I did all of the training. I had written an education grant at the time. And so we were able to get Chromebooks for our students that were in 3rd through 5th grade with that education grant. Well, and I didn't know how to use Google at the time. So I became a Google educator, got all of those computers set up and logged on. But that's the only way our teachers would be able to, write a letter or, do an Excel sheet. So it was sometimes necessity brings change, but sometimes what I really like about Fort Smith is we're always looking in Fort Smith Public Schools for ways to be on the cutting edge and not just being, not just catching up with things.
Yeah.
And I think in my previous experience, we were just dog paddling. We were just trying to catch up. If I needed something, I had to write a grant for it. Our district is constantly looking for ways to be on the cutting edge. So
that's awesome.
That's great.
And you mentioned parents before.
Yes.
And so I'm just curious because there seems, and this is very much a generalization, but there seems to be a lack of trust between parents and school districts. And what has your experience been in Fort Smith Public Schools as far as that relationship between the district and the parents who are living in the community? What does that trust look like? And why do or should parents trust Fort Smith Public Schools with their kids every day? You guys see kids Monday through Friday more than their parents do, oftentimes, right? So, I was just curious about that, parent relationship.
I think that is intentional too, and it comes a lot, it comes down to communication, really. So, I don't experience any parents not trusting me as a principal because I interact with them a lot. I spend a lot of, I greet their kids in the morning. I put their kids in their car in the afternoon. I know what parents go with what kids. And I think that builds a lot of trust too. So I think that trust comes from all the way down. It comes from the teacher communication with parents. It comes from the principal communication with parents. It comes with, the district communication with parents. And I've seen that evolve over the 8 years that I've been in Fort Smith. Really, one of our pieces of our mission is to be transparent. And so I see an intentional effort to be transparent with parents. So we have meetings all the time when we're going to do something different as a district with a school. So like, for instance, we had a rezoning meeting this morning, and we'll have a rezoning meeting this afternoon. All of our district administrators are there for that, to answer questions with parents. So I think that really that availability, that communication, that being able to explain the why behind the decisions that are made, I think that really builds trust. You can't make everybody happy all the time, but we try. Yeah. And so I think that, we try to make sure that parents understand the reasons behind the decisions that are made. So, and usually if a parent is upset initially, I think the timing matters, like not just letting people wait if they're upset about something. I think trying to immediately or as soon as possible get back with that parent, because what I see in Fort Smith Public Schools from my vantage point is, I have principals meetings with all of the principals in the district, and those are pretty frequent, like twice a month. And they all care, they all really, really, really want to do what's best for kids. They're conscientious. They spend a lot of time outside their normal work day, just really trying to build a great school for their kids. And so, and then within, what I see daily in the building is I've got teachers that, will do whatever they can to try to help make students and families feel comfortable. So I think that's where that trust is built is through the relationships, the conversations, the communication. So
I think the expectation for communication has shifted too.
Yes.
Just because we're inundated with communication all day long, whether it be social media or emails or text messages, it's just constant.
Yes.
And so that expectation is there from parents. And I think whenever you don't communicate, there is that, what's going on right now? I don't understand. Like, why am I not hearing about or hearing from my teacher or hearing from administration right now?
Right.
And so I really appreciate that response. I think as a parent, that's what I want. I just want to know.
Right.
So
on the flip side of that, though, there has to be balance, right? And I do feel like there is an expectation for teachers to kind of be on call all the time,
Yeah.
And especially post-COVID, we've heard a lot about educator burnout, and we've lost a lot of teachers due to burnout. I mean, I'm one of them. I might start to cry right now. But 7 years you've been in this position as principal.
Yes.
That is a long time to be in a leadership position at a school through a pandemic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And as to Josh's point, like, communication expectations have changed even since COVID. Right?
Yes.
So how do you personally maintain balance, and how do you combat burnout and make sure that you're taking care of yourself, that you have boundaries, and that your teachers have boundaries, and that they feel like they can turn off sometimes?
Yes. Well, I tell my teachers often, that they need to take care of themselves. They don't have to, there's no expectation on my part for them to answer class dojos in the evening. They can set this, there's a setting in that so that they can set it so that it doesn't disturb them at night. And so they know that they can do that and that that's okay. And they also, a lot of them have hobbies and other things. I also, if they need to go to the doctor or take care of their kids or go do something that's important for them, I never give them a hard time about doing that. And so I think that's really important for leaders to think about. For me, how I take care of myself is another thing that I love about Fort Smith, actually. When we moved here, Ben Guerin Park has 3 disc golf courses, and we just knew it was that Frisbee thing when we first moved here. And so we actually moved here in December of 2019 because I had driven back and forth for 2.5 years before that. So we moved here in December 2019. So that was just right before COVID. And on a Valentine's Day, I've been married almost 31 years now, but for a Valentine's Day that year, well, 2020, February 14th, 2020, my husband was like, hey, do you want to go play that Frisbee thing? And I was like, yeah, sounds good. So we went to Walmart and we got like 99-cent Frisbees, and we went to Ben Guerin, and it was a little bit muddy outside. I had on Sperry's, nice flat shoes, slip sliding around. Got through 2 holes and then started watching some people play. And my husband was like, honey, I think we've got the wrong stuff. So, anyway, we went and changed clothes, went to Academy, bought a little starter set for disc golf. And so through that time, it was great to start this new disc golf hobby. Mm-hmm. And because it was outside, we didn't have to worry about social distancing. That, Fort Smith has a lot of really good outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
And Ben Guerin Park is a great example of that. So for stress and for those kinds of things, I play disc golf. I don't think at all about work when I'm playing disc golf. I get to throw plastic really far and try to get better every time I do it. And so are there other disc golf courses in the area? And there are 3 at Ben Guerin. There's one at Tulsa Park. It's one of the oldest ones in the state at Tulsa Park. There's one at Ramsey Junior High. There's one at Trinity. Those are all just right here in Fort Smith. And so we started playing, and then we started playing tournaments, and then we started doing all sorts of things, and then I got to go to nationals twice.
That's so cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so I placed 3rd at nationals. So yeah, and so anyway, that was a couple of years ago. But anyway,
I'm so glad we took this route with the conversation.
Discover Fort Smith. I mean, we're discovering new things right now.
That's great.
But what's great about that is Western Arkansas Flying Disc Association. Almost immediately, we had people connect with us out on the course and just kind of drew us in. And one of them teases us all the time. They're like, oh, you're the first couple of disc golf. And so,
that's so funny.
Anyway, but are
they the ones that put on Hell on the Border?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So they put on tournaments around, and they have mini tournaments. So every Tuesday night, Saturday morning, and Sunday afternoon, they have minis and things. So we kind of became a part of this disc golf community through that.
I love it.
They also, in the wintertime, I think they just started this week, in the wintertime at the Bakery District, they have indoor putting league. And so you can practice all winter long at the Bakery District on, I think it was Monday night this time, but it's usually on Tuesday night.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So that we've made a lot of friends that way. And it's been really good for my husband too, is working for himself. He has, he might go do an inspection, write a report, and then go play disc golf. And so it's given him people to do that with, friendships that he's built that way. And so there are just a lot of really, and in that, it's funny, I think I'm the only principal in that group. So everyone has a different job. There are a lot of people that work construction. There are a lot of people that do different things, but that gives us that common tie. So we can all talk about disc golf.
That is so cool.
That is.
Yeah.
I love that.
So you mentioned that started, the genesis of that was a date, right?
Yeah.
You wanted to go on it. Where else do you guys go on dates in Fort Smith? Where do you like to eat and, do something fun on a date night?
We're kind of foodies. I eat way too much sometimes, but that's the great thing about Fort Smith too, is we have so many great places to go eat. I love, El Zarape, Hideaway Pizza, Walk-Ons, Tassini's, Thai food.
Oh, yeah. I haven't had that in a long time.
Yes.
I haven't had that in a while. Thank you for this
conversation.
conversation.
Tell us more. Well, those Thai food and things like that. We've got pho. We've got just so many great places to eat. We have traveled a lot too. And so it's funny. We went to Greece summer before last. And while I was there, while we had just a phenomenal time, I'm like, I need some Thai food. I need to go back to Fort Smith.
Yeah.
So anyway, we also, we went to, this past summer, we went up to Michigan, went to Canada, went around the Great Lakes and everything. And it was great, but I miss the variety of food that we have here in Fort Smith. I think that's one of the greatest things that we have to offer is just the variety of culture and food and just experiences. It's impossible to list all the great Mexican food places or all the great Thai food places or all the great Vietnamese food places. And I think that's really kind of unique to our area here.
Yeah.
I mean, even going to Tulsa or Dallas, I don't think you get the variety that we have right here in Fort Smith with great food. So,
I was reading about the history of Fort Smith, and it was talking about how Fort Smith was often the last stop before people headed west.
Yes.
And because of that, it brought in a lot of different types of people, a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different cultures, and that has greatly impacted our food scene, even from back in that time, Right. And then we've welcomed refugees here that have greatly impacted in amazingly delicious ways. Our food scene here. That's why we have a lot of Vietnamese restaurants here.
Yes.
And it was just really interesting to learn about that and how that history has impacted, our culinary scene. It's pretty cool.
I think that's one really special thing about Fort Smith is there's more history here than there is most places. So I think that it's, with Leadership Fort Smith, we were able to go to the Marshals Museum. We went to the National Historic Site. We went to the History Museum. And I was standing there in the History Museum, and there was a wagon there. And the wagon was, this wagon company was in Fort Smith until 1924. So it closed down in 1924. Well, this is 2004. So that's 100 years ago. The wagon company in Fort Smith closed down. And when you think about like the span of time, that's not that long ago. Yeah. But think of all of the advancements from then until now and all of the changes that have happened in Fort Smith. What I think is great is Fort Smith has captured a lot of that history that a lot of times places let go or let run down. So we went to the Clayton House and it takes a lot of intentional effort from a lot of people to make sure that we capture that history and that it stays here. And so I think that's something special about Fort Smith too.
Yeah, I totally agree. For a town, we were like 93,000-ish people population-wise. We have very rich historical sites here and very well-preserved, artifacts. And just being here for a couple of years now, it's been really exciting and fun to explore all of those things and just to learn about this history. And it's a source of pride
It is.
for the community, really. And Yeah. I just think I totally agree with you there. The Marshall's Museum is so beautiful.
It is.
And it's such this gorgeous architectural modern gym here. Mm-hmm. And then you go right across the street to Miss Laura's, and it's this like Victorian era, former brothel, and then just like a couple blocks down, you've got the Clayton House, which is another, historic mansion essentially that, I can't remember who it was that lived there. Who lived there?
William Henry Harrison Clayton. He was the prosecuting attorney for
Isaac Parker, right?
Yep. Yeah. You are so good.
Yeah.
I was like, what was his name? Job. It's not Isaac Parker, but he worked with Isaac Parker.
He did.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's awesome. And a lot of these things, what I know is a lot of people that live here have not experienced a lot of these places, haven't gone to the museums. And really, if you've gone to the Fort Smith Museum of History once, you have not seen it all because they're constantly changing those things out. They're getting new exhibits in there. So, part of the reason we're doing this is because we want people to go out and experience these places that are right here, right in their backyard. Go see them and tell other people about them and hopefully draw some more people to our area and celebrate the rich cultural history that we have here.
And also to shine a light on what people who live here are proud of too, like for visitors, because I know when I go to a city, I'm much more likely to go hang out somewhere that somebody's like, who lives there is like, oh man, you got to go check out this place. We go there every weekend. It's amazing. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll go there. So I think it's cool to hear you and other people talk about what you're proud of within Fort Smith. And
like 21 West End, Stonehouse, those are places that when we have people come in, we'll take them to go eat. They're really nice, more upscale places to eat. So I really think that there's something for everyone. And so we take them to play disc golf too, because that's what we like to do.
I want to come play disc golf with you. Like maybe we should go shoot another part
like
two.
This is a sign.
Shoot a part 2 of this podcast and have a disc golf tutorial.
I would be too. I would be so bad though.
I have -0 hand-eye coordination, so it could be fun.
Well, I was really super terrible when I started. So anyway,
but now you got. How is that journey
Come on,
just starting, not even knowing which discs to get, going to academy, getting starting set,
Sperry's in the mud.
Yeah, to third at
in the
nationals.
nation.
Well, we played a lot, and there aren't a whole lot of ladies that are older like me that play disc golf. So they should, but there aren't a whole lot that do. And so, it would be much harder for my husband to get that high of a ranking because there are so many more men that play. But it's still fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much.
Another great thing is something that I've done with friends is go to the bakery district.
That's great.
Have a coffee. We've got some great event spaces. I know that, our school district has had different events. We had our Fort Smith Foundation did a little mocktail party at the bakery district, which was really fun to celebrate all the awards that they gave out to teachers and things like that. And so there are just a lot of good little event spaces for things like that too.
So I don't know what it was, but something that you just said made me think, if somebody's considering moving.
I'm wondering where this is going.
I'm like, this is actually totally not related to anything you said at all, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If somebody's considering moving here and has a family with kids.
Yes.
What would you tell them about the school district?
Oh, well,
yeah. Because, a lot of people are moving here.
Yes.
And honestly, so I oversee a program at the city called Make My Move. And so we're incentivizing remote workers to move to Fort Smith. One of their top questions is, what are the schools like?
Right. Yeah. Are they safe?
Right.
What's the curriculum? You know?
Well, our schools are very safe. We have secure vestibules at all of our schools. But that's not really what I would say, but to explain the safety, we have a lot of good measures. We have we did have, now lots of other districts are copying our district, but we have we've actually built a Fort Smith Public Schools police department, which is really unique.
Yeah.
And so we have people that spend all day long just making sure that our schools are safe places to be. So, anyway, I think that's a really unique thing about Fort Smith Public Schools, that we take safety really super, that's our top priority. And that was that way before the law changed to make it that way. We do things not because we have to, but because it's what's best for kids.
Yeah.
And so I would say that is one thing that I would say. I would gladly put my kids in any single school that we have here in Fort Smith, although my kids are grown now. But if they were still little, or if I had grandkids, I would be confident in putting our kids in any of our Fort Smith public schools. And the opportunities that they can get, because, collectively we're a large school district. So a lot of times the resources that we can have as a large school district are greater than what you could have in a private school or a charter school or those kinds of things, because collectively, we have that ability to do more things. And so, but I would trust my kids in the hands of any of our principals in any of our schools. And so that, I think that that's probably my biggest selling point. And I really am critical about who takes care of my babies. But I'm also, as a principal, the kids that are in my building are my kids, and I am going to treat them just like they were my kids. I'm going to make sure that they have the best of what we have to offer. So, and I'm going to make sure they're safe, and I'm going to make sure that we follow the safety protocols and things like that. And I know that we have a lot of just really talented, caring, loving people that work in our district.
I think that is what you're saying about caring for your kids at your school is really emblematic of Fort Smith as a whole. I think we really care for each other.
Yes.
And whenever things that are bad or things that are good happen in the community, we come together well and we take care of each other.
I agree. And I think, one of the great things about living in Fort Smith, if you're moving to Fort Smith, there are so many ways to get connected and really to have a full and happy life, joyful life. I think that you have to be positively impacting other people, because you get so much out of giving. And we have so many great organizations where you can do that. So we have like the Boys and Girls Club of Fort Smith is outstanding. Our United Way is like no other.
Yes.
Our, Girls Inc. is amazing. We have just lots of other groups that people can be involved in. So I think that connecting and having those community relationships, they say that like Fort Smith's the biggest small town you'll ever be in, I think. And so I've heard that multiple times. And so I would agree with that. I've lived in a really big town and I've lived in a really small town. And I would say you get that connection, the relationships are stronger in Fort Smith than what they would be in some other communities. So.
People are so generous with their time, with their talents, with their treasure. I think Fort Smith is full of generous people that are willing to give and make things happen.
Yeah.
And talented.
Yeah, and
people
talented
too. So.
Very true. Yeah.
And many of them have come through Fort Smith Public Schools.
For sure. Well, I think that was my most, one of the things I was most amazed about my first year is we went with our then sixth graders went to elementary school. So we went to Ramsey Middle School and Chaffin Middle School and took our sixth graders with us so that they could see the different programs that they had. And the orchestra demonstration and the band demonstration, I was just totally blown away. I was like, how in the world do they get kids like playing instruments when they don't, they don't start orchestra until 6th grade, and they're out there playing music that is phenomenal. And so we've got really great fine arts teachers. And so that's another. I just have so many things that I'm proud of. Fort Smith Public Schools.
And there's so many talented kids, like coming up. And we were talking about this at lunch, how this generation kind of gets a bad rap. Like people talk pretty, in my opinion, badly about the younger generations. And I'm just curious about what you would have to say about that, because you work with these kids every single day. And I just think some of what we hear people saying, it's just not true,
right.
And yeah.
I would 100% agree with that. We've got great kids. We've got great families that care about their kids. We've got great, I think they said that about millennials too. And I've got 3 children that are millennials, and they're all excellent people. So I've always kind of pushed back on that narrative. But we've got great kids that are striving to excel and working hard every day. And the great thing about Fort Smith is, even if they don't have a whole lot of parental support, we've got all of these other people that sweep in, circle up, and make sure that all of our kids are successful. We've got student success plans for every single kid that graduates from school. So either, they have a plan when they leave school for whether they're going to go straight into the
that's fantastic.
Workforce, or if they're going, to further their education, or if they're going into the military. They all have a plan, and they really start working on that in 8th grade. The kids in Fort Smith Public Schools all take an aptitude test, so that it can show them not only like an interest survey showing what they are interested in, but also what their aptitudes towards being gifted
it's so
are.
Great.
Which is amazing, because kids only know about the jobs that they see.
Yeah.
And so they know that there's a doctor, they know that there's, someone that works at a restaurant, they know that there are teachers, because those are the things that they see every day. But by giving that U-Science aptitude test to all of our students, it helps them really see what are other possibilities, what are the things I could be good at, which opens a lot of doors for them. So
that's wonderful. And I love that you said every student leaves with a plan. But what I didn't hear you say was that's to go to college, because I see a lot of cool schools, and the goal is 100% college acceptance. And college it's not for everybody, and it doesn't have to be. And I know a ton of super, super successful people who are brilliant and creative and just lovely, who didn't go to college.
Right.
And like we've seen a shift in the value of the bachelor's degree, right? And so I love that you said there are different types of plans.
Right.
And it depends on the child. It depends on the student, what they want to do. And so that brings me to my next question. I promise this is going somewhere.
Okay.
Like vocational schools here in Arkansas.
Yes.
What does Fort Smith Public Schools offer as far as like vocational training in high school?
Yes.
I know you're elementary.
Yes.
But I'm just curious. Like, do you know about, or can you speak to that?
I can. We've got the Peak Innovation Center, and I spoke a little bit about that earlier, but through that process, it's a collaboration with Fort Smith Public Schools and at University of Arkansas, Fort Smith. And so students can finish a program to become a CNA. They can be an LPN. They can take machining. And I don't have like the list of all of the certifications that they can get in there, but they can, in like the machining, they get to leave with a whole set of tools at the end of their program, not only the certification, but the tools that they need to get started. And that's just a lot of collaboration with different, through different organizations, grants, our companies here.
Like ABB
Fort
does
Smith,
the
yes.
tools. Yeah.
Yes. So like electric components. They've got plumbing apprenticeships that they have here in our district. I think electric apprenticeships that they have. Anyway, I'm an elementary principal, but I am familiar with a lot of the things that Fort Smith has to offer. So, and through Leadership Fort Smith, that's another great program that I think is pretty unique. Is we've got a Leadership Fort Smith program here in Fort Smith where you apply for it and then you get to learn even more about all of the different pieces of Fort Smith. So
it's been awesome.
It's really been a fabulous journey so far. But what we want, kids can also go through programs so that they leave high school with an associate's degree. So, or they may get a certification. So maybe they want to be an RN, but they get their LPN license on the way while they're in school at Peak. So then when they're finishing up their bachelor's for their RN program, they can work as an LPN and then graduate debt-free. And so that's something that's
incredible.
Important too. So it may not be even, some of the certifications that they might get on the way, they may decide to stop there and just work on that. They could go through welding and make a really good income and support their families with welding. Our adult education center here in Fort Smith Public Schools is phenomenal too. So I was a non-traditional student, so I didn't go, I started 1 year of college and then I didn't go back to college until my kids were all in school. And I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So it took me a little bit of time to figure that out. And I think a lot of kids are like that. So I think now it's better because we do those aptitude tests and we do all of those things to give them more avenues for success. But we have a lot of adults in our community that just need a little help to succeed. And so our adult education center gives them a lot of skills and resources and helps connect them with different scholarships and things to help them succeed too.
And like interview preparation, stuff like that, right? And some of the stuff they do there.
Yes. And like completing their people's GEDs and things like that.
Yeah,
too.
completing GEDs. Yeah.
And getting free college if they want to go that path or going to truck driving school and making a great wage driving trucks so they can support their families.
So that's free?
The adult education center. Yes.
And like what ages? Is it for certain ages?
It
or
would be anyone past high school.
Okay.
So
wow. That's
a lot of resources there. Yeah.
Cool.
And they also provide daycare and things like that while people are going through those trainings. So,
nice.
And they also provide daycare for some of our high school students that need someone to take care of their kids while they're in class so that they don't end up dropping out of school before they graduate. So,
speaking of that, like what are the metrics for success in Fort Smith Public Schools? Like, what are you guys looking at to measure how successful your programs are?
We look at a lot of data. Right now, we're going through a really fun process. We're creating a portrait of a graduate. So we are getting a lot of community input, a lot of input from different educators and from community leaders and people all across Fort Smith to really make a picture of what we want Fort Smith Public School students to have, like what kind of skill sets we want them to have when they we've got those individual success plans, but generally when students leave school in Fort Smith Public Schools, what do we want to make sure that they have? And so we're going through that process right now, trying to figure out how to measure all of those things is that'll be part of that conversation. But we measure student data through our assessments, and we use that assessment data to drive our decision making on our instructional practices, our curriculum, determine where gaps in our curriculum might be. I'm also on our district guiding coalition, so we have a team of people that work for Fort Smith Public Schools that are from different departments, so we've got some elementary principals, we've got high school principal, we've got middle school principal, we've got people from our finance department, from curriculum instruction, just a wide variety, along with our superintendent, that looks at that data and determines where are the gaps, what should our next steps be in filling those gaps, or what are some things that we need to do to make sure that we can measure our success in those different areas. We also give surveys to parents to get feedback, and then we use that feedback in making decisions. So one example of that would be, we did some surveys, I guess last year, with families and community members about what's important to them. And out of that, having playground equipment that's kind of equal and accessible at all of our elementary schools was one of the things that came out. So we are working right now. We just, at parent-teacher conferences, had a mock-up of what the playground might look like. And then we got feedback from parents to make decisions about whether that's the direction we need to go or if there's something we need to change. So, that perception data, that data from, what families want to see, that's important too, on top of that data that we get from assessment scores.
Well, this has been enlightening.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Is there anything that we didn't ask that you wish we had?
Oh, goodness. I had so many things that I was thinking about. Fort Smith is just a really great place to learn, to grow, to raise a family, to share with your family. I think that anything that you're interested in, there's something for you. So, and then also, you may not even know that you're interested in it. One thing, we've got the Janet Huckabee Nature Center.
Love it.
Wells Lake. There are great walking trails all over Fort Smith. Terrain Lake has great walking trails around it. So even though you're in an urban area, there are little pockets of nature that you can go out and enjoy.
There's a Cross Park.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say. It's beautiful.
And you can kayak on that little pond there too.
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
I love
cool.
kayaking.
You can rent kayaks there.
Oh, you can rent? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there, and I think we've got some new businesses coming in. I just found out about the 8-10 billiards and bowling.
Oh, it's great.
Yes.
I want to try it out. I haven't tried it out yet.
It's super fun.
So anyway, I think if you want to be connected, Fort Smith's a place to get connected.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important things.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming to be on the show.
You.
And thanks for all your work that you're doing with the kids in the school. And
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you.
I appreciate you. So thank you.